Let's get started. So let's talk about this. The GPS. We actually already in the chat said if we've tried it or not. If we haven't tried it, what stopped us? It's usually one of three things. Number one, are we clear that did we know it existed? Number two, did we think it was appropriate for our goals? And number three, did was it intimidating? Because it's kind of intimidating. It's kind of an intimidating document. I will tell you that for a long time, personally, I didn't use the GPS. I only used the 411, and I'm a lot more comfortable and familiar. Well, I shouldn't say that. For a long time, I was a lot more comfortable and familiar with the GPS. I'm sorry, with the 411. And therefore, that kind of kept me from dipping my toe into the water around the GPS. Now that I understand how it works and how to build it, and have taken some of that edge and that mystery off of the tool, I've realized its power. And it's not that one is better than the other. Let's be really, really clear. You do not always need a GPS in order to do your 411. And just because you don't have a GPS, it doesn't mean that you can't be successful. But what I want to do today, success for us here today, that I want to make sure we get to, is to take away some of maybe the confusion or the edge around the GPS. Make sure that you understand what it's, when to use it, how to be successful, and then to give you the tools to be able to go build it if you want. What you're going to find is that for some of us, it's not even a relevant tool. And for some of us, it's critical. And what makes it one better, which makes it more relevant or not, that's going to be up to you, and it's going to be up to your specific goals. So real fast, my name is Mark Donahue. I'm one of the coaches here. You see me a lot in the Facebook community. I'm a trainer on the team and have been coaching with the One Thing for about 4 years now, and excited to help a lot of different clients, whether that's get their GPSs built up or actually implementing this. So today we're going to take the scariness out of the tool, make sure you're clear on what it is and how to go use it. And what we're not going to do is I'm not going to sit here in front of you and I'm going to say, here's what the ideal GPS looks like. I promise you, I will put that up as an example inside of the Facebook community so you have it as a reference. But we cannot simply build a GPS in 1 hour. When we go into organizations or we're working with an individual or coaching client, it literally will take us hours or multiple calls to be able to build a GPS. And the reason for this is because it takes a lot of time to be doing a lot of thinking. And if you have a business, then we need to look at some of the numbers in order to understand how we set this document up. But what I want you to walk away with today is confidence around the tool. Take away the scariness, let you then have the tools to go use it. We're going to post this video, the recording, on Friday. So today's Thursday. It's going to go up tomorrow, and you'll see it there on our YouTube page. So you can always come back and revisit it. It's a free resource for you to always take advantage of. And you might find by the end of the call, you don't need the GPS right now, but maybe in a month or two or next year, you need the GPS. It's going to sit there for you as a reference. Okay. Is this clear? Give me a thumbs up if your camera's on. We're making sure we're good to go. Awesome. James Cullen, how are you doing, man? I haven't seen you in forever. It's great to see you. All right, let's get into this thing and we will share my screen so you guys can see where we're going. And boom. Awesome. And again, I apologize for the solopreneur approach to this today. So GPS success. Really, really simple, friends. How does this fit into our system? If you remember this flywheel, this really comes into the create a plan piece. And when we start with that vision, remember, we go out to someday in the future, we work this backwards, someday to 5 years to 1 year. At the 1 year level is where the GPS might start to show up. Again, for some of us, and for me, I was able to be successful in my businesses for years without actually needing a GPS, because it was a pretty straightforward business. I was very clear on what I needed to be doing in order to achieve success. And it didn't have a lot of interdependencies in order for me to get there. So again, just giving you permission that if you don't go do one today, that's okay. Then of course, if we use the GPS, we're aligning to it. It serves as a North Star, as our guide map for us to be able to make sure we're getting from where we are to where we want to be. And we live the day to day, not in the GPS, but in the 411. From our 401, of course, we go block time on our calendar. And then, of course, we might find that we need to develop habits or change some behavior so that way we get more clarity on our vision and we continue to have success. So I just want you to see where this fits into the whole process, because it is a big part if it's appropriate for our business. Again, if you're leading a team, if you're leading a division or a company, or I would say if you have a goal that has a lot of complexity or interdependencies, The GPS is a really powerful tool for you, and it's going to give you a ton of insights and a ton of clarity around what it is that you need to be focusing on. And as I heard my buddy Michael Bunch say, it also gives you so much clarity on what you should be saying no to. You just have to understand altitude. If we're doing someday, and that's to use Chris Dixon's references, someday goals are 100,000 feet up. The GPS lives in that 40 to 50,000 foot perspective. The 411 tends to live at that 0 to 10,000 foot perspective. It's like we're in running on the ground executing. This is really powerful for us to get clarity on all the moving pieces, so we make sure we're moving and aligning them forward. You also could use this to lead yourself. And here's what I would say. I didn't see a bunch of value in the GPS at first for my personal goals. I always saw the value of it once I started understanding it in the business side. Where I have found success with the GPS, or where it's helpful on the personal side of life, is if I have a goal that I've had on my GPS, I'm sorry, my 411 or my someday goals for a long time, and I consistently don't make progress on it. That's where I found the GPS was really helpful on the personal side of life. I've also found now with kids that sometimes it's easier as kids are getting older to be able to accomplish goals with my kids with a GPS, because it allows the entire, I'm going to say organization, the family, to align towards a common goal. And I've seen this in a coaching relationship before as well, where we have seen people who had a sales business and they wanted to hit a certain income level, but their business was very blended. It was an after hours type of business. We'll call it a side business. And it was one of those times where they felt bad. By like dinner time, the phone would be ringing and they knew it was a client that they needed to take a phone call from, but they felt bad taking time away from their family. Anybody else ever been there? Like, I have a business that I run, and right. Okay, great. With a GPS, they shifted their goal from an income goal to a family experience goal. And then it started to say, how can we as an entire family operate together to move these priorities forward so we can have success as a family? And so one of their priorities, we'll talk about the structure of this next, part of their priorities was, how do we give grace or give permission for someone to take a call? Or how do we behave when the income producer is on a call? And it changed the way that they would answer a call in the car. It was one of those, hey, everybody be quiet. It's a sales call. Because if we know we can hit our sales goal, then as a family, our goal to go on the Disney vacation cruise, we actually all achieve it and we can all contribute. So you might get a little creative with the tool and see, how can we actually use this across different, uses, but also inside of our personal life. If there's a net worth goal or there's a health goal and you've struggled to make progress on any personal goal, simply breaking the goal down with the GPS process actually can help make that goal significantly more achievable. And so again, you might not choose to use it, and that's okay too. Here's the basic structure of the document in case you've never seen it before. GPS, just like a compass, right? It's our global positioning satellite. Where are we? Where do we want to get to? When we see the GPS, we'll usually see at the top, my goal. Your goal is your one thing. That's it. When you do that 7 circles exercise that we talk about at goal setting retreat, we talk about in coaching, when you identify what area matters most for you this year, and you then decide, I'm going to build a goal around that, your goal is your one thing. It's just that simple, right? That's the goal we take over. So if you decided to have multiple GPSs in a year, you can do that. But remember, friends, the whole purpose of the GPS and the 411 is to make your life less complex. So having 7 GPSs floating around can make your life, I'll let you decide if it's more or less complex. For me, it was too much complexity. I just needed one. And so I'd build the GPS for the goal that mattered most for me. Sometimes that was my personal goal. Sometimes that was my business goal. 9 times out of 10, as my business grew and it got more complex, I found that I needed the GPS to keep my team aligned. And that's what we're going to talk about next. So number one, your goal is that it is your one thing. The priorities, we're going to talk about this again, real simple language. The priorities are the big categories you need to focus on. in order to be able to achieve the goal. If you don't hit these major milestones, these major focus areas, then you're not going to be successful. I will tell you, we tend to make this way more difficult than what it needs to be. For almost any goal, I would bet that you almost intrinsically can identify some categories that you would have to be successful in order to achieve that goal. So trust your gut here. If it's your first time, just trust your gut. And then the strategies are what we actually need to go do. How do we make progress in the priority area? It's the tactical things that I need to be doing to make sure that I'm on track for my priorities, for those categories. How do I move the category forward? That's what we're looking for here. And all of those then should drive up. If we're successful at the priority level, then we should, without a doubt, hit our one thing, our goal for the year. So again, regardless of the area, regardless of the circle, you can have a GPS for any circle of life. It tends to show up more frequently, though, on the business side, whether we're leading teams or we have people in that process. Okay, I'm going to pause right here. I'm going to pause my share because this is the day today. And I'm going to go to the chat box because I just want to see if any questions are popping up. What do we have? Can fasting be my one thing? 100%. I'm going to try that name. Gacko. It can be your one thing. Absolutely. That would be in your health circle. And here's what I would suggest. If you are looking to be fasting, then, it may not require a GPS because you might just be able to go execute on it without that thought exercise. However, if you were saying, I wanted to lower a body fat percentage, or increase a strength or something like that, and there's multiple pieces to that goal that you've struggled with in the past, then the GPS might be helpful. Roger, this should be helpful moving into retirement. 100%, right? You might ask the question, how do I make sure my goal might be to make sure I don't, consume too much money, or how do I make sure I'm living life the way I really want to live? Or if you decide you're going to travel, you might have a GPS around your travel plans. That would be great for sure. Will I share slides directly with participants? Great question. I appreciate it. We're going to put this in a video. We won't be sharing the slides directly with participants. And yeah, absolutely, Roger. Moving into retirement may require accessing many of the 7 circles. Yep, 100%. 100%. Okay, I'm going to jump back. Going to keep moving here into this next little piece around how do we know we are building a successful GPS? There you go. There's your goal, priorities, and strategies. The purpose, friends. Simply put, the purpose of the GPS is to give you, I have found 3 things. And if you are achieving these 3 things, then I would say you are successful with the GPS. My kind of watershed moment came when my coach asked me, Mark, what would have to be true in order for you to earn $1 million next year? I'm looking at some of your faces, and that was my response too. Because I had just started to break into the 6-figure income range. So $1 million was a huge task. And I didn't know how to do it. But my coach asking me to build a GPS around the plan for me to earn $1 million, it triggered something for me. Gary Keller said in a different book, he said, he's co-author of the book, he said, we experience the world twice. The first time we experience it is in our minds, and only when we've experienced it in our minds, then can it become a part of our reality. Let that sink in for a moment. We experience the world twice, and only after we experience the world in our minds can it become a part of our reality. Think about a relationship you've had with a significant other or someone that you care about. Right? You in your mind envision the relationship, what you might say, what you might do, where you might go, what activities you might engage in to strengthen that relationship. And once you've run that through in your mind, now you get to then go experience it. By the way, friends, stress in your life comes when that reality doesn't match the expectation. So if you have stress in your life, it's because you're doing this, you're experiencing the world in your mind first, and then in actuality, it doesn't line up and you go, oh, that's frustrating. It didn't go the way that I want it to go. That's stress. The purpose of the GPS, when we take these huge goals, like earn $1 million next year, it forces us to think differently, to experience how we might build the plan. And once you done the mental rep, I have found that the best GPSs are ones when you look at them and go, you know what? I think I can do this. I really believe that this is possible for me. And I will tell you that without that belief, I have found most people don't make significant progress on that goal. So keeping this in your back pocket as purely a mental exercise might unlock some things for you that you hadn't thought of in the past. And that's why I think it also can work so well on the personal side. This is making sense. Thumbs up, thumbs down. Awesome. I appreciate that. The second thing, and second and third things you've heard us talk about 1,000 times if you've ever heard the podcast around a GPS, and that's clarity and alignment. Clarity, what are the things we need to be saying yes to? What are the things we should be saying no to? And then alignment amongst your team. Who owns what? How do we make sure that we're driving towards the same outcome? Are we clear in what we need to be engaging in, what we need to say no to, where we need to be spending our time and our resources so that way we can actually go and achieve the goal? That's really what we're after. But I will tell you, friends, again, for me in my coaching relationships now, I'm more interested in people doing the mental rep and having the confidence in the plan than I am about what actually goes on the GPS and if the language is correct. If it, like we can work through that stuff. You doing the mental rep is wildly, wildly important. So now how would it go on? How do we start to build this? What I'm finding great success with, friends, and again, we're not going to go build this ourselves, but what I want you to do is I want you to understand how you might go build this. So you might leave and go try this yourself. As with everything we do here at The One Thing, I want you to start with the end in mind. I want you to go all the way and be aware of how you're going to use the GPS, because that then gives us a little bit of structure of what this might need to look like. When we have an established GPS, notice I said established, not perfect, not correct, not a right. A working is probably the best definition of a GPS that we're after. We want something that we can use to actually continue to move us forward. We want to start with how we're going to use this thing. And so the first thing we do, let's fast forward and imagine for a second, you've built a GPS. Your team's aligned. You know what you need to be doing. And you sit down at the end of the time period when it's time for you to check in. We're going to talk about that in a minute. How do you actually use it? If you don't know, how do you know you're building the GPS correctly? These are the 4 questions we ask when The One Thing does their GPS review, and it's the same 4 questions we give to every single coaching client when they have a GPS review. Number 1, start with reviewing. What did we say needed to happen in the last 30 days? We recommend you check in with your GPS every month. At the most interval we'd want to see is every quarter. But if we're going to go every month, then in the last 30 days, what did we say would need to happen? Just for clarity, we're doing this item by item. A GPS review takes about an hour for a team. Whether that's a team of 2 or it's a team of 20, it takes about an hour. What did we say for priority 1, strategy 1? What did we say needed to happen in the last 30 days? That answer, by the way, comes from their 411. Whatever their monthly goal from the 411 is, that's their answer. We said we needed to do this. Great. How did we do or align? Are we on track or off track? If Scott was on my team and I was asking Scott 1.1, Scott, you own 1.1. What did you do? Did we get our, were you successful or were you not? Are we on track or are we off track? I just need a yes or no here. On track, off track answer. That's it. Then number 3, based on what Scott did in the last 30 days or didn't do or didn't get done or whatever he learned, do we need to adjust the timeline or the strategy? We thought we could get this done in 30 days. Turns out it's going to take a bigger lift than that. The technology doesn't exist, or there's 3 really good vendors we have to decide as a team. We need budget approval, whatever that might be. It's going to take me longer because once I got in this, I realized there was more moving pieces. Or no, I just need to double down. I think we can still hit the timeline we established. I just got distracted because something else showed up. Kid got sick. Whatever. You understand. This third piece, friends, I want you to get a lot of peace here. Because if you understand that a part of the GPS review on how we actually go and use the GPS is about the adjustments we make in the process, then you'll understand that you don't have to build the perfect GPS out of the gate. They don't have to be perfect. You just need to do it. Just get the rep. And when you have that rep, then what you start to unlock is opportunities to give yourself grace throughout the months so that way you can adjust the process. There's no way you could in any given year accurately describe or predict what was going to happen in that year. It's just not possible. Something's going to go sideways with your plan. And in that case, we're going to adjust. So thinking for a moment that a perfect GPS means I'll never change it and it'll just keep driving me towards the result, that's not even close to reality. There was a year, friends, where we as the one thing, our GPS changed 5 times in 1 year. 5 times. So give yourself some grace here. Understand you don't have to be perfect. We're going to adjust along the way. And then the last question we ask is, based on that, what do we need to accomplish in the next 30 days? So think of this as a team. Let's go back to Scott. Scott, what needed to happen in the last 30 days? We needed to book 100 client meetings. Fantastic. Are we on track or off track? We're off track. We said 90. We said the goal was 100. Our team only did 38. Okay. Do we need to adjust the timeline or do we need to change this strategy? Well, I think the strategy will work. We just had to get some new people onboarded. Somebody so-and-so quit, as you know. So I think we can get back on track with this. Great. Now, what needs to happen in the next 30 days? In the next 30 days, because we had a gap, we need to do 130 new client meetings. Great. Awesome. Scott's clear on what he needs to do in the next 30 days. As the business owner, I'm clear on what needs to happen in my business in the next 30 days. I know how I'm holding Scott accountable. That answer Scott gives me for number 4, that shows up. Put it in the chat. Where does that go in Scott's world? Put it in the chat box. Yes. It goes on his 411. That's what he needs to be doing. This is how we start to connect these two documents. He's clear on what he needs to do for the organization. Then it shows up in his world in his 411. He can then break that down in what he needs to be doing every week, and it needs to be showing up on his calendar however many times. And at the end of the month, I'm going to come back to the same 4 questions. I'm going to pause for a moment right here. And I'm going to either let you put your questions in the chat box, or if you want to come off mute and ask a question, I'm happy to answer it. Oh, I love that question. What is the 411? So the 401 really simply is how we take our annual goals or quarterly goals, break them down into smaller goals, and call out weekly activities so we make sure we're engaging in the right behaviors to achieve goals we've not yet achieved. I say it's the tool we use to identify what we're not yet doing so we can achieve what we're not yet achieving. 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 year. That's how it breaks down. Exactly. Also starting to see some success around 4 weeks, 1 month, 1 quarter. Especially if you're like in tech, that is a 1 year's way too long. All right. So Lynn says, it's so hard to review this as a solopreneur. I'm so glad you said that, Lynn. I will pay you your $20 later because we're going to talk about how, as a solopreneur, you actually go and do this because it's really, really helpful. It's a 1-pager to keep things limited. Yep, Scott, absolutely. It's getting everybody on the same page. Any road trip in the GPS in our car suggests changes routes multiple times. Yeah, 100%, right? Exactly right. So as we're driving on the road, I literally drove from Florida to Wisconsin in the last 2 days and all kinds of accidents in the snow. Hey, you might not want to go that way. It was not so fun. Yeah, recalculating. Fantastic. Okay, any other questions? Again, I want to encourage you, if you've struggled with this GPS, you've been intimidated, feel free to ask them now. Is there a method you have to break through mental, emotional blocks on setting goals? Faith, yes. The answer is yes. And that's probably outside of the scope of this call. Here's what I'm going to encourage you to do. If you are not in our Facebook community, I'd love for you to post that question there. Go ahead and ask to join. It's free. It's the one thing on Facebook. Join it over there. Throw that question up, and I'll be happy to give you a dissertation as a response in the Facebook community. Does a single agent only need a GPS? A single agent, just for the rest of us, that's an agent inside of the real estate space. Yes, a single agent could use a GPS. I had success for several years without a GPS, just using the 411. The 411 helps us follow the GPS. Yes, the 411 is informed by the GPS. And remember, if it's just you as a single agent, then perhaps you don't need a GPS. What is a GPS? It is the goal, the priorities and strategies we need to be able to achieve our goals. Can I put the link to the Facebook page? Can somebody who's in Facebook throw that link to the Facebook group in the chat? I'd really appreciate that. and I'll give you 10 bonus points. There you go, Lynn. Thank you so very much. Awesome. Okay, let's keep moving on. Here's what we really want to see on a really polished version of a GPS. We want it to be really simple. If you don't take anything off of this page, friends, except for one thing, the 20% of this page is your GPS being simple will actually let you go execute it. The more complex it is, the harder it's going to be to do. So make it simple. Make it so where anybody could pick it up. Anybody that's relatively intelligent could pick it up and understand what you need to be doing to be able to achieve your goals. Who owns what? That's really important, especially as the more your team grows. If it's just you, you might find that you're missing some people in your organization, and that might become who you need to hire first or to leverage something out so that way you get some time back to stay in your most important activities. Specific and measurable, because we're asking what happened in the last 30, what's going to happen in the next 30. This should be specific and measurable. Again, knowing how you're going to use it should solve that. And time bound is pretty clear, because whether it's going to happen in a quarter or it's going to happen by the midpoint of the year, your priorities might actually be time bound as well. I have a couple coaching clients right now that their number 2 priority is to be done by the first quarter of this year. So you can have time-bound priorities at the strategy level. You can also have them at the monthly level. All right, let's keep rolling on. Check in here. Of all the things we talked about, what would you say makes a successful GPS? Put your answer in the chat box. I gave you my answer. You're welcome to rip off my answer if you'd like. Clarity. Awesome. Being used. Yes. What do you actually use? Yeah. Intuitive. Simple. Yep. For sure. Being used, that it's doable. Yep. Tracking towards your goal. Clear and specific. Taking action. Yeah. You guys are getting this. The one that you're not calling out that I would add is confidence. Remember that mental rep. I walk away and feel like, yeah, this really is possible for me. Okay, let's keep rolling. Someone else in the office can understand it, see what you did. Yeah, beautiful. That's good job, Scott. All right, now implementing the GPS. What do we need to do to make sure we're actually getting this thing from the paper up into our world? Real simple, friends. We need to get clear on how often, once the GPS is established, how often do we need to review it to stay on track? Here's what I mean by that. Are you going to review your GPS every single month? Are you going to review it every quarter? Anything beyond that, you're kind of getting out of touch with this document. I would highly encourage that you decide. We encourage you to do it monthly. We also understand that sometimes life shows up, but if we time block it and we really make it an important part of our world, it can be done. You need to decide who needs to be present. So Lynn, let's go back to your question. Excuse me. If I'm a solopreneur, who are the people that I could enlist support from to hold me accountable? Who are the people that might hold the GPS review for me? If I'm an agent, if I'm a real estate agent, right? How many of you in the chat box, put me in the chat box if you're a real estate agent on the call today, because I know we have a big group of agents here inside. Okay, awesome. For those of you who are agents and you are a single agent, meaning you don't have a team, you could do this with the office broker. You could do this with other agents inside of the office who are using a GPS as well. Like, get creative here. I will tell you, in the last 2 years, I have found that for my most important goals, I'm assigning people who are going to who I need to surround myself with in order to achieve those goals. So my health goals, there are 2 guys, Alan Merritt and Donald Williams are the 2 guys that I check in with consistently around my health goals. Every important goal for me, there's a quote unquote board of directors that I have to be able to achieve it, because those goals that sit in silence, that no one's aware of, that no one's holding you accountable to, are the ones for me that I consistently drop the ball in. I'm not suggesting you have 7 different groups, because that would be saying everything matters equally. Your 2 or 3 most important goals. Who are the people that you need in your life who are missing that can ask you these questions? Hey, what needed to happen in the last 30 days? How'd you do? Are you on track? What do you need to do differently? Do we need to adjust something here? And then what do you need to do in the next 30 days? Them asking the question for you, you could totally lie to them. But you knowing that they're going to ask you the questions, I promise you'll see significant improvement in your results. When will we review the GPS? This question is less about the frequency and it's more about like what day. We recommend, again, best practices here, friends, end of the month on a Friday or a Monday, whichever one makes the most sense for you. Those 2 days seem to be the best. Why? Because if we have to change strategies, let's say the last Monday of the month, part of that week, we can get with our team if there's interdependencies below us. We can get with them to make sure we're all synced on what the new priority is or the new focus for the month is. So we're driving towards that. Or Friday, because I might then need to go build my GPS, my 411 of my new monthly priorities based on what I learned in the GPS review. Okay. Now, last one is, this is a great question that Chris Dixon had, and I absolutely am going to steal it from him. And that's, what's the most likely obstacle we face for this priority? You build the priorities out. I'm going to show you how to do that next. We build the priorities out. Ask the question, what's most likely to stop us here? What's the obstacle we're probably going to face? Why? Because if we can start playing defense ahead of time, you are going to be more successful. You just then respond versus having to pause, think, and overcome it. And then I skipped one. What do we do when priorities change? You adjust. You ask the question, is this still relevant? How many of you had a goal where you thought you needed to do 7 or 8 different things? You get into it and realize it was way easier than you anticipated. If that's true, like, priorities change because things aren't necessary, they're not relevant, or you've accomplished them, or the market changes, whatever that looks like in your industry, then adjust. It's okay to take things off. Remember, it's a living document. It's a living document. Okay. I'm going to take this down, bring you guys back up, and I want to talk about how we actually go about building the GPS. We know we have a goal. The way we get our goal, real simple, friends, is we go back through that 7 circles activity, right? Just like we do it at goal setting retreat every year. We go ahead and we identify someday success. Let's get clear on what someday success based on what we have accomplished in the last year. I encourage you to revisit someday success every year. We then work that backwards to the 5-year level. If I'm going for that someday goal, what needs to be true in 5 years in order for me to feel like I'm on track to achieve that someday goal? And then what would I then need to achieve in the next 12 months in order to feel like I'm on track for the 5-year goal? You get clarity on what your goal is. You make that specific and measurable. What do you actually want? How would you know you were successful? Then we start to go to the GPS. First thing we're looking to build are the priorities. Yep. Give me 1 second. I'll take care of that. Thank you. We're looking for the priorities. There are 2 schools of thought on how you can build your priorities. The traditional way we've always taught is when you think about your goal, first pause and look for clues of success. We know success leaves clues. So the first question we tend to ask is there somebody else who's already achieved a similar goal in your industry that you're after? And if so, can we look behind the curtain and see what were they focused on? What were the things that they did in order to achieve that goal? I'm all about R&D. You know what R&D stands for, right? Rip off and duplicate. Like, you don't got to recreate the wheel. just look and see if someone's already done it. And then can you focus on the same things? Rip off and duplicate. Once you've got clarity around, if you can see, oh, that person, in order to achieve that goal, they were doing a fasting diet. They spent so many times doing cardio, so much time doing cardio, and so much time doing strength training. Those are my 3 categories. I'm going to focus on those 3 things. I want to run 5 marathons. Okay, what should somebody focus on in order to run marathons? Well, it's probably a workout routine. There might be a coach involved, and there probably is a diet or supplement plan. What about climbing mountains? Pick your goal. I don't care. You probably can see what successful people are already doing, and those priorities might reveal themselves. Remember, the priorities are kind of the categories that we need to be focusing on. These kind of big tasks, big things that we are going to be focusing on to move us forward. That's the first thing. If you can't find success, then you might intrinsically just trust your gut. what has been true in the past, so that way I can make sure that I am achieving this goal. What can I learn from my past experiences? What can I focus on to make sure I'm driving towards those results that are going to categorically move me closer to the goal? You might do a brain dump activity and say, here are my big 20% rocks I'd have to focus on in order to be successful. That's a traditional way. If you come from the 411, like you've done a 411 before, you've got experience with the 411 and you're really comfortable with it, the process that you probably use when you go from the month to the week is you are clear on the goal, and then you brain dump all the things you could engage with, the things you could do to achieve that goal in the month. And I'm going to tell you, friends, you can use that same process to identify your priorities. How many of you in the chat box, yes, me, I don't care which, but how many of you, when you think about a goal, you automatically can think of things you need to be doing? Like, I wanted to achieve any goal. I know I would need to do this, and I would need to do this, and I would need to do that. You can come up with a laundry list of items in order to say, if I was doing all of those things, then I would be successful. Okay, if that's you, then start there. I will tell you, I've helped people build GPSs the traditional way, and I've also helped them with as much success by building the GPS the non-traditional way, what I call the non-traditional way. And that is, write down all of the things you could think of that you would need to be doing, the tactical things, right? I would need to be going on more appointments. I would need to be making more phone calls. I would need to design new widgets, like all of those tactical things. I'm glad you do, Keely. I do too. Brain dump it, get it all out of your head. And then when you're looking at this list of activities you could be engaging in to be successful, now work it backwards. Look at all of the activities and see if categories start to show up for you. So if I have a sales goal, whatever it is, and it's about client meetings and contacts with clients and client events and referrals, I would lump all of that together into a category, something like lead generation. Then I would look at, okay, there's probably some things I caught about, I would need to be able to follow up with people, and I would need to make sure that, how do I get referrals from people? That to me starts to stand up another category that I usually will call systems. So I have this laundry list of items that 3 or 4 things kind of cross over. What is the category that starts to emerge from there? If you go that route, now you might say, well, there's 3 or 4 pretty obvious categories that I need to focus on in order to be successful. And the beautiful part about it is, not only do you have your priorities maybe identified, but you also can start to fill in your tactical strategies. You're kind of killing 2 birds with 1 stone. And remember, if it isn't perfect, that's okay, because you now know that you can adjust this along the way. Where you can't stop, though, is to just put lead generation as a priority is not sufficient. Why? Put it in the chat box. What does the phrase lead generate? Why is that insufficient for a GPS? It's not specific enough. It's too vague. Tony Wallace, good to see you, buddy. What specifically? Yeah, exactly. Well, not necessarily that we need to break it down into tasks, but because how would we know we're successful around lead generation? If you run a business, right? It's like saying, okay, I want to get one of my goals this year is to get my body fat percentage down into the 15% range. So what if my number one goal or my number one priority was lose weight? Way too vague, not even close to specific enough. How much weight should I have in order to be at a 15%, body fat? Like, we need to be way more specific than that. So we ask the question, how would I know I'm successful around lead generation? And that's where, again, friends, this is why we can't build a GPS with 150 people on a call, because each of you might have different paths to achieve the same goal. Even if I said, let's all create a GPS around making $1 million, you would all come up with a different path. And here's the truth, friends, you probably would all be right. And I'm okay with that, but we would never get alignment here. So when you go build yours, just ask the question, do my categories arise? When I have my priorities stood up, are they specific and measurable? How would I know I'm successful with lead generation? Okay, well, if I was lead generating more, then I would maybe generate 500 leads through our funnel this year. Great. Now we're specific and measurable. That's the priority. Strategy. What are all the things I could do to generate 500 new leads this year? Okay, I could knock on doors. I could go business to business. I could do referrals, whatever your tactical things are that you could focus on. Now you start to fill those things in. We limit the GPS to 5 strategies per priority because we're not going to do everything. That's not the intention. We're going to leave it to where we're focused on those 20 percenters. And then we go back and we ask the question, just like you do in your 411. If I could only do one of these, which one's going to have the greatest impact on achieving the goal, on hitting that priority, on generating 500 new client leads? What's the single most important one? Oh, you know what? If I ran Instagram ads, that would have the greatest impact on me setting new appointments. Okay, great. Let's start there. Priority 2, or strategy 2, strategy 3, strategy 4. Here's a misnomer that I want to make sure we're clear on. My best GPSs, personally, did not have 5 strategies for every priority. My most successful GPS didn't have 3 priorities. This is about being more clear, friends. This is not about doing more. So resist the urge to have 3 priorities because that's how many are on the document and 5 strategies for each. You're looking for confidence, clarity, and alignment. If you can identify those critical things you need to be focused on, that's, I would say, better for most. The reason we built it with 3 priorities and 5 strategies is because if you're in an organization with 30 people, you're probably going to have that many moving parts. But remember, this is about clarity, what we should be doing, what we shouldn't be doing. So resist the urge to just fill it in because the space is there. Kai said, did you say the GPS informs the 411? Yes, 100%. And I also said that not everybody needs a GPS. Again, if it's just you, you might not need one. If you're leading a team or an organization, then if Paul Parker's on my team, then I might ask him, Paul, what do you need to do in the next 30 days to drive this priority forward? And he'll say something like, I need to go on, our division needs to create 5 new widgets. Awesome, Paul. So on his 411 for the month is make sure or create 5 new widgets. And then he would then ask the question on his 411, what does he need to do? He might this week need to meet with his team. What are the 5 widgets? What can we come up with? Where are the biggest pain points? What are we going to solve for? So on and so forth. Okay. Goal for today. Number 1 is to give you clarity around the document. Number 2 is to help knock off some of the intimidation that might live around the document, and then to give you the back end how you might build this thing, starting with the end in mind. How are you going to use this? Knowing what the questions are, so that way you know how to build this. Then we went into how do you actually start to stand up priorities and strategies. We gave you the traditional approach. We gave you what I'm calling the non-traditional approach, where we just brain dump everything and see what categories emerge, make those things specific and measurable, and then come back and check in. I gave you the 4 questions you ask. Whether you're a solopreneur or you have a team or an organization or it's a family, it doesn't matter. What did we say we needed to do? How did we do? Are we on track, off track? Do we need to make any adjustments? What needs to happen in the next 30 days? We do this. I'd recommend we do this every 30 days, every month. I always like to do mine on Mondays at the end of the month, the last Monday of the month. It gets a 1-hour time block, and I check in with my team or my organization. If you have multiple businesses, by the way, you could put multiple businesses on your GPS, and those could be your priorities as well. So there's lots of freedom that you can use this document for. Again, remember, it's your document. It's okay to change it. And it's a living, working document. That's what we're looking for. Thanks for clarifying. You don't have to have 3 and 5. 100%. Yes, Mark. Absolutely. I will take your help, self, and guidance and get what I can. Awesome. Okay. I'm going to pause here at this point, and I'm going to make sure we have space for questions because I know there's a lot of nuance to this document. We can ask, I'll take questions around the process itself, building it. Hey, I have a GPS and I'm stuck with this. this is a priority on my GPS. Do you think this is sufficient? If we want to do some coaching, we're happy to do that. Or I'm still not sure how these documents actually interact between the two. Do I have the GPS template? I do have a GPS template, and I promise I'll throw that over in the Facebook group. If it wasn't just me today, I would have that in here and I'd be able to grab it and throw it in here for you. But I will put the GPS template inside. It's actually already there. For those of you who are in the Facebook community, the free Facebook community, if you go under resources and you type in GPS, there is a template there. You're very welcome. All right, so this time is yours now. What questions do you have? If we are a business of only one, how would we use the GPS to help us? Okay, great question. So again, if you're a business of only one, you might not need a GPS. You may be able to be successful with just using a 411. If you choose to use a GPS, then what I would encourage you to do is to enlist some support of other people who can ask you those 4 questions every single month. So if James is James, are you still in real estate? Beautiful. If James is a team of 1 and he's running his business, I don't care if James is doing Amazon drop shipping or he's doing real estate. I don't care what his business is. But if he were to say, I've got this goal, then he would build his GPS because he's struggling to achieve the goal. He wants the mental rep. Awesome. He might say, Mark, will you ask me these 4 questions around my business plan every single month? Sure, James, be happy to do it. He might take me to lunch as an incentive. He might pay me as an incentive. He might ask me, I might, owe him a favor or something like that. So this is where we come back to the one thing when Gary in the book talks about, hey, you might have to barter on some of these things in order to make sure you can get these things done. But I would encourage you to get people inside of your world so that way they can ask you some questions. Yep.
Mark,
Thank you.
I can actually add to that because I started 5 years ago using it, and now there's 3 other business partners. 2 are solopreneurs, and one's a manager at a big tech company. They all utilize it for their own goals now. And we just have a group chat, and there's $100 risk if you don't update what your one thing for the week is every Saturday.
Love it. That's incredible. So you guys do it every week, James?
Yeah, because we realized, I mean, having kids or whatever else, time goes by, and to do once a month was tough, but just give me the one thing. So then when I called Mark and I'm like, hey, your one thing for this week was the webinar or setting something up for that next event. Have you done it? No. Okay, cool. How can I help?
Yeah. What's getting in the way? Right? Like, what can we learn from the failure? All of that. It's fantastic. I will tell you, friends, that is the biggest challenge I think most solopreneurs face, is that they have nobody in their corner and they're just trying to do everything by themselves. Sometimes someone asking you the question that you already know the question, someone else just asking it to you, brings a sense of clarity. And like, so do you need to make any adjustments, James? And he goes, I actually forgot that I don't have to keep doing the same thing that's not working in my business. So I'm like, well, I know that intrinsically, but if you hadn't have asked, I wouldn't have understood. Frey, okay, so quick question around the connecting the GPS to the 411. Again, I would ask Frey first and foremost, if it's just you, that might be I will tell you the most confusing piece between the GPS and the 401 is in a smaller amount of people involved in the GPS process. It makes more sense when there's more people because it's a little bit more intrinsic. If it's your GPS, let's go back to James's example. James runs his own business. He has a GPS. He's got three priorities and 4 strategies for each. So 12 things he needs to be focused on. He goes to his 411 and there's only 5 items he could call out. What does he need to focus on? Okay, well, that's a little bit of a rub. And so we would just come back and say, okay, well, first, what are the critical 5 things he needs to focus on? Okay, Mark, if I only focused on 5, I wouldn't actually get the success I want. Well, guess what you just discovered? You're probably solving the problem. You're probably solving a who problem with a how solution. I'll say that again. You're probably trying to solve the problem that is a who problem with a how question. How do I get this done with everything else I have to do? And what I heard Gary Keller say one time is the difference between a millionaire and a billionaire is a millionaire asks how and a billionaire asks who. So the GPS might reveal to you that you can't do everything. You can't get it all done. And you might be missing some people. and you might need to go hire someone. I don't have the income. Okay. Can you hire it out to Fiverr? Like, how can you offset that? Is there someone in a social group that you're a part of that maybe needs some help? Can you enlist support from a local college, of someone who wants to be, an intern, or that needs some community service hours, but is focusing on marketing and they understand YouTube and Instagram way better than what you do? Like, it might reveal a gap in your business. And so again, if it's just you, what we do is in that connecting it to the 401, if we say, all right, what needs to happen in the next 30 days, that should, whatever answer we come up with, that should go right to the top of our 411 for the month. That's how they're really connected. We're not going super tactical on what I'm going to do Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. That shows up at the 411. So I know I need to get to this milestone by the end of the month. That's what the GPS commands of me. So what I need to be doing this week so I can get there, that's the 411. Yes, replay will be in Facebook. Say you have a 1-year goal, but not someday goal. Thinking is far out there. Is one benefit to approaching it this way than the other? Okay, Paul, great question. This is a muscle, and it takes some time. And I would say go as far out as you can. So if you can only go 5 years, that's okay. We just don't want to be standing. Here's where I am today. Here's my pain point. How do I solve for the pain point? I want to be moved by a vision forward, and that vision might only be 3-5 years out. That's okay. That's better than saying, here's what I did last year. Let me do 10% better. I hope that, give me a thumbs up, Paul, if that answers your question. Beautiful. All right. Should always have a critical friend. Yes. Oh, brief summary of applying the 411. I will absolutely answer that question if you ask it in Facebook. It's just going to be outside of the scope of our conversation today. And we've got a ton of resources, whether it's podcasts and prior videos where we've done that before. It's not that I don't want to answer it. I said I want to keep the scope to the GPS. Okay, great. Any other questions in there?
So it's Margaret here.
Yeah, go for it.
So going through this makes me think I am a solo agent, and I do have some admin support, but I am a solo agent. The more I think about this, it seems like for me, I want to make a double my transaction
Okay.
goal. And
Yeah.
but my transactions are low in count compared, like I'm not at 100 and I want 200.
Sure.
Right. So it seemed to me the 411 might be a better place to start. If it's just, I want to do 36 transactions in the year and then break it down.
I don't think it's a right or a wrong answer here. I think it's kind of an option. If you are struggling with how would I actually go from 8 to 16, 10 to 20, 30 to 60, then the GPS, the mental rep could be helpful. And because you already have an admin, what may be helpful is your admin being able to reveal to you your blind spots. So you're really good at the agent, probably the people side.
Yes.
That admin is probably really good at the system side. And you're probably clueless. If you're like me, Erica, don't just come off mute and tell everybody. Erica is one of my coaching clients. You're probably clueless when it comes to systems.
Yes.
And so he or she might say, okay, well, here are the systems that we would need to develop. And that might reveal to you, oh, I can't profit 60% this year. If I profited 40%, that would give us resources to be able to go higher, leverage, whatever that might be. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
If everybody can see Erica right now, she's laughing at me because she knows. Awesome. Some more questions. Review, adjust. What do you do in the next 30 days? What's the last question for your monthly check-in? So the 4 questions again. What needed to happen in the last 30 days? Okay, this is why this is really important. So I want you to put yourself in the position of you work in corporate America and you're having your, whatever, you're not even corporate America. You have a big team or whatever your industry is, and you're just making sure we're getting alignment and clarity. So let's say for a minute, Erica's on my team and I say, Erica, what needed to happen in the last 30 days? And she gives me some outrageous answer that has nothing to do with the last 30 days and the goal of the company, or like she's totally unprepared. That just gives me insight as a leader that I might have a potential problem, and I need to take that conversation offline to make sure that she's clear on what she needs to be focused on. Remember the 3 goals of the GPS, right? The mental rep, the confidence, clarity, and alignment. So if Erica tells me that she's been working on, this cool new way that we could break into a new market, and her responsibility is on, I don't know, like conversion, then hey, that's outside the scope. So that's why we asked that first question. Then what needed to happen? Are we on track, off track? Do we need to make adjustments? And then lastly, what needs to happen in the next 30 days? So that way my team has their marching orders. And by the way, if you are the person who might be leading a GPS conversation, happy to support you on that. What I would suggest that we do is that you are making sure if your team members give you an answer that seems like, man, this is my responsibility. I'm driving this team. I don't think that's right. Then right there on the spot, we can crowdsource from the entire team to support that member of the team to make sure we're successful as an organization. Hope that helps. Other questions? Thanks, Todd. I appreciate you jumping on there. Good to see you, buddy. Will I be at family reunion? No, I will not be at family reunion this year. I know. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm going to leave it open here for some more questions. Hang out for a couple more minutes. If not, we're wrapping up at time. So I really appreciate you being here. So again, 2 more things before you head out. If you're not already part of the free Facebook community, please make sure you go over there. Well, if you have additional questions, I'm happy to answer them there. The GPS template, I will make sure we have there. I'll also throw in there an example of what a high-level GPS, and because you were here, I'll also put in there that $1 million GPS that I built, so that way you can kind of see how I formulated the plan. And if you want to rip it off and duplicate it, it's totally fine with me. R&D, baby. Last thing, if you're a part of the Lead Domino class, if you are and you aren't participating, those classes have started. Just make sure that you're tuning in. If you have a question, just email Kim at theonething.com and she'll make sure you have all the links and everything that you need. Hope this was helpful. My goal for today was make sure that it was clear for you on how to go forward. Do you feel like you have confidence that if you needed to go do a GPS, you could go do it? Be honest with me. Don't just tell me what you want to hear. Yeah, you guys are very welcome. Very, very welcome. Off to Facebook now. Yeah, don't get lost though, Carmel. Awesome. You guys are great. Thank you so very much. Appreciate y'all. See you in the Facebook community. And of course, if you guys need any support, reach out to us, support@theonething.com or just mark@theonething.com. Cheers. Adios. Thanks, friends. You're welcome.